Shark Week! Yeah, I know, like, to be fair, when you get busy, you tend to forget stuff. But, speaking of, take a little side trip like the last time. Well, one of probably the most powerful, if not, I would say more abundant wild-born of the ferret species. Rokea, the weresharks. Yeah. Let's see. Much like everybody else long time ago, and a guy up far, well, not too far away, but more far went away, which is giving up the duties amongst the predators and a few chosen herbivore species. There was no one to defend the seas, so she gave that tax to the sharks. Like, the Rokea are fucking incredible. They're much like the red talons, that a good chunk of them are born shark. There are a rare few who are born human, but they usually tend to stay either in the beast courts or, well, they tend to get hunted down, which basically it's a self-impergium for the Rokea, which is a little bit unfair, but here's the thing, they are sharks. They don't think like mammals, they're going to think like fish. And pretty much similar to like the best that they have their own tribes based on what species of shark. Pretty much about I would say like most any shark can be Rokea, but there are a few that I would say have additional benefits for being a certain kind of shark. If you give me a second. Aha. Found it. There's like I would say more species-specific tribes. We got the Karka, the great whites, Spina, hammerheads, Lexcha, bull sharks, Galchorfa, the tigers, Ixia, the makos, and the goblin sharks, who currently are still unnamed, but it's one of those things, you can be basically almost any predatory shark. Just those are the most, well, at least documented of the sharks, or at least documented amongst our kind. Speaking of, their participation in the War of Rage, almost non-existent, basically because they are the guardians of the ocean. They don't have to worry about what happens on land, so they very much made it through practically unscathed. And pretty much like basically the Garu on the land, independent seas, fighting the worm wherever it dwells and whenever it breeds, though they don't call it the worm. See, if I recall correctly, Creole is the worm. Set is the land, and I forgot the The one for Gaia. If any other galliers can help me out, be much appreciated. Da, 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 da. Coon, that was it. Don't you hate those brain farts? So unless you're a Rokea, a lot of their legends you're not going to find out through secondhand sources. At least the closest you're going to find would be the Mokale, but they tend to be like the best allies to the Mokale, so even then, be really careful. But pretty much is like the Rokea did their jobs, and they did their job pretty damn well until roughly around 1955. You see, it's an event that kind of simultaneously happened, and there's a lot of weird chicanery going on. A specific spot in the Pacific Ocean, all the Rokea were gathered for basically what would be the equivalent to a grand moot for the Garu. And somehow, even unbeknownst to them, they were the U.S. government, either by chair Rokea, the worm, leeches, who knows what, managed to figure out where they were, sneak up on them with a fleet, and detonate a nuclear device in a disguise as a nuclear test. It nearly wiped out all the Rokea in the Pacific Ocean. Like, those were furthest away to blast, were either able to use gifts to get away or even cross into the Umbra. But those who were closest were pretty much dead. And it's been like that for like the longest, well, since 55. They've been trying to regain their population slowly, which kind of leads to their other problem of their little rarity of human-born Rokea is starting to get a little bit gaining more numbers. Which, on the one hand, for the beast courts, they're doing their best to make sure the Rokea don't go overboard, at least in the Pacific side of things, while on the Atlantic side, it's roughly hit or miss depending on what's going on. And not to mention certain films like Jaws, the Meg, pretty much like any Jaws rip-off or any killer shark movie, so that doesn't help things either. With the recent occurrence of Shark Week, it's a little bit iffy. Because on the one hand, when they actually do the scientific shows, it's just the mortals that sharks aren't that bad. But at the same time, usually the good stuff's usually at night, which is the shark attack. Yeah. No bueno there. But it's one of those things, if you, I highly recommend be very careful if you're going out to sea, with at least trying to encounter a Rokea. They're quick to frenzy. Remember, they got the mindset of a fish, so they're not going to understand a lot of more mammalian processes. The main reason why they get along with the Mokale is they tend to, well, they're not as related to them, but they got a more similar mindset. So At least if you're going to at least have a Mokale with you, you'll always talk to them. Speaking of the other safety tip, they have 3 auspices. The Bright Waters, which are the warriors, the most prone to frenzy, which about roughly 90 to 95% of them are. Which again, you're out in the ocean. There's literally no cloud cover, or basically anytime they're born under the sun or any lunar phase, you're a bright water, you're a warrior. Next, you got the dim waters. Those are born under shifting, either cloudy, overcast, or a shifting moon phase. Usually a little bit more dimmer than full moon, or at least my theory is roughly up to a half moon. They tend to be pretty much tend to be your like the equivalent would probably be a Philodox. They're the ones that enforce the Rokea version of the litany, which is really simple in itself. With only one variation being with the Hamids and the shark-born Rokea known as the Betweeners. We'll get to that here soon. Then finally, the dark waters, those that are born under eclipses, total darkness, or even under a full moon. They are your mystics. They're the ones that tend to be more observant, innovative, and tend to be a little bit on the weird side. But then again, just being with the bright water, it tends to be weird. To get back to a point earlier, with Hamids being rare, there are those Rokea that have gotten more curious and venture out on the land. That they stay on the land for a certain amount of time. They're known as Betweeners. And they, like the Hamids, the Rokea tend to hunt down because certain things like birth control and some of their peculiar habits tend to be more off-putting to humans. One of which being that they tend to be on the move a lot, even just sitting still fidgeting. They gotta get up and move, which is the way of the shark. If you don't move, you die, because that's how you breathe. And oh yes, and much like the Garu, they have, depending on who you are, they tend to have, at most they have all 5 forms. Most of the time they'll have 4. The Hamid, which is self-explanatory right there. Glabrous, usually Hamid-borns and Betweeners can accept this, which is basically the air version of Glabro form. They tend to take more shark-like features. Gladius, which is equivalent to a Krynos. This is their war form. Shamus, which is basically whichever shark species you're the Megalodon version of it. And Squamous, which is your shark form. It's like their Karens are known as grottos. They're basically what would be a Camisot's cave, which they are caves, but point being that they're one of 2 ways that they can access Gnosis and cross into the Umbra. The exception would be in dark waters, who can cross over anywhere, or certain gifts or rituals that will allow them to cross, but usually that's the easiest access point. Wow. The other would be the Rokea, which are actually, well, I wouldn't necessarily say called werewolves, but they're more They are whales. They are basically enchanted with either enchanted or infused with gnosis, which they can fish with them for a while, gain some gnosis, even gain some insight on what's going on in certain parts of the ocean. Because while Rokea tend to swim a certain amount of territory, there are certain spots that even they can't be able to swim. Other than that, like I said, their main allies are the Rokea. Some could even ally with the Naga if they're still around. But other than that, that's what I could think. That's what I could think, off the top of my head, at least. So, sometimes you don't need a bigger boat. Just be really, 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 really generous with your chum. Because at least if they're eating that, they won't eat you.